Good evening, Timmy talkers. Ooh, it's a second ghostly countdown of Halloween. And thank you for anyone who's remarked that I look like Jacob Marley in this jacket. I think I look absolutely fabulous. So please stick with me. This one is A Child Crying in the Night. There was a house in Linton on the west coast of England, which is now the Lynn and Exmoor Museum. It is one of the oldest in the town, and when Mr. and Mrs. Ewings went to live there in the early 1930s, they were happy to find such a home. At first. When Mrs. Ewing's sister-in-law brought their nephew to stay with them, she was put in a small box room above the scullery, but was so terrified that she refused to sleep there again. And then the little boy started screaming and kept on about a nasty lady, so he was moved as well. Strange events began to happen, such as the constant crying of a child heard distinctly in the scullery. Mr. Ewings told his wife that it was probably nothing more than the wind in the chimney, but she didn't believe it, because it sounded more like the wail of a child crying bitterly. Some time later, her brother-in-law came home from leave in India, and he was put in the box room too. But when Mrs. Ewings came down in the morning, she found him asleep on the settee in the front room, and he refused to stay in the box room again, but he would never say why. One night soon afterwards, they were talking downstairs when he admitted that there was something which puzzled him. Why was the scullery so much larger than the small box room directly above it? He suggested there might be an enclosure over one end, and he went exploring and found a walled-up cupboard. The next morning, my brother-in-law and I set to, and we broke the wall down, and inside we found a quantity of bones, a dead bat, and a child box with belongings strewn across two planks. We gathered the bones up and wrapped them in brown paper, and they were taken to the local doctor, who sent them to the police, and they were placed, finally, in the public mortuary. When their landlady heard of this, she was so angry she came to the house to give them notice and demanded to see the cupboard, which she said did not exist. Mrs. Ewings led her upstairs, and when something awful happened. As she stepped over the threshold of the room, all of her clothes fell off, and she was stood there in her underwear. She was so embarrassed she never went into that room again, and within 1 month, she had died. After this, the house became quieter and the crying ceased, until one fine day in October, Mrs. Ewings took her baby to see the parents, who lived quite near the town. Suddenly she had an uneasy feeling she was being followed, and she looked round several times, but there was no one behind her. When she reached the loneliest part of the journey, she turned round again and stared straight into a woman's face who was standing directly behind her. Mrs. Ewings can describe her vividly even today, an old-fashioned sage green outfit and a wide black bonnet-shaped hat. But I cannot say whether the expression on her face was hate or gratitude or evil. I like to think it was the latter, and perhaps she was right, for a great aunt came to visit a few months later, remembered a scandal attached to the house which they had bought, and she'd known this scandal when she was a child. It was a farm for babies whose parents were too poor or unable to bring them up, and one of the small children disappeared. And the mother was distraught when she was told the bad news, and the child was never found. Mrs. Ewings hopes that the lady who followed her that day was the mother, anxious to thank her for finding her child and laying it to rest. There. Nice 4 minutes. Right. So, thank you very much for listening again. Like, share and subscribe. And my TikTok thing's up the top. And today's song is The Sound of Silence by Depeche Mode, which was a request. And evening, Molly. As I promised, there's your shout out. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.